No gym? No problem. Here's how to run epic training sessions with minimal kit. Welcome back to the Storm Fitness Academy podcast. And I'm super excited today. Don't know if you can tell, I've got a bit of a buzz about me. And that is because I'm outdoors. I have been looking for a good excuse to take this podcast outdoors for a while. And I have one. Not just because it's a beautiful day, which it is. I'm in the sunny Sussex countryside, but because this is going to be an outdoor themed podcast. So for the next 3 episodes, I'm going to do a series of 3 episodes based on outdoor training. Now, this is going to be relevant if you're somebody that is a fitness enthusiast thinking about training outdoors, or if you're a PT and you want to take your clients outdoors. I'm going to be covering the benefits, the practical applications of doing this, some things that I've learned along the way, and most frequently asked questions I get from my students about taking clients outdoors. Now, I'm a good person to ask these questions because I started one of my first fitness businesses was an outdoor business. And it was actually called, wait for it, Storm Outdoor Fitness. It was basically boot camp, so taking groups outdoors for boot camp style training sessions and one-to-one personal training. I've got to tell you, I loved it. It was brilliant. They were good days. I got some very fond memories of those days. And the reason I chose to do this was a couple of reasons. One, I just didn't really want to commit to a venue. There wasn't a gym at the time that I really wanted to stay static in. I like to get outside. I like to move around. I don't like to be in one fixed place. So I just couldn't really commit to any particular place at the time. I didn't want to commit to any particular place. I want to keep my options open. So I thought, well, I'm an outdoorsy person. I love the outdoors. There's tons of benefits to training clients outdoors. So why not become the go-to outdoor guy in my local area? So that's what I did. I set up Storm Outdoor Fitness. So today's episode is called How to Coach Clients with Minimal Kit and Still Get Maximum Results. Okay, so I'm going to go through some frequently asked questions here, specifically to do with training with minimal equipment. Here we go. What are the benefits of training clients outdoors? Well, I'm going to start off with the obvious benefits. Vitamin D is huge. Most people in the UK have to supplement vitamin D3 because we just don't get outside enough. Once upon a time, we would have spent the majority of our time outdoors. Now, we spend the majority of our time indoors. In fact, I heard the other day, 90% of our time is spent indoors. Now, that obviously varies depending on what you do for a living, but most people do work indoors. So 90% of your time is spent indoors, which means you're missing out on all this wonderful vitamin D. I mean, this is fantastic. And, vitamin D is linked to so many benefits, but one of the ones that I think gets overlooked a lot is just your mood. Is often just getting outdoors more often can take somebody from feeling quite low regularly to feeling great. So that is something that you're doing for your clients, getting them outdoors, giving them some lovely endorphins from the exercise, but then giving them some vitamin D as well. And you're not only doing that for your clients, you're doing that for you too. You're doing that for you as the trainer. So it's a win-win. Great for your clients, great for you. Now, also, I don't know if you can hear any sounds, but you can hear those bird sounds. Now, whether you're consciously enjoying that or not, I believe that there's something in just those sounds. But the sounds, the smells, the sights of nature is very, very powerful. In fact, there's a study done where they looked at patients in hospital rooms and they found those that had a window with a view of nature, and nature could be a tree outside the window, those that had a view of nature versus those that didn't recovered faster. They spent less days in hospital. So, I mean, God, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? What minimal equipment should every PT have? Well, look, I'm not a dictator. I don't tell people you must have this. But what I had was a backpack with a pair of boxing gloves, a pair of focus pads. I bought 3 kettlebells, which I kept in the boot of my car, an 8, a 10, and a 12. And I bought an SAQ bag, which is speed, agility, quickness. It's a bag that's got an agility ladder in there, cones, slalom poles, a parachute. So they're bits of kit that work on improving somebody's speed and their agility, their footwork. Now, you can use that to work on somebody's speed and their agility and their quickness, but you can also use it to create more cardiovascular type running drills and what have you. So I love that. The SAQ bag was about £50. The kettlebells at the time cost me 55. The pads and the gloves were 25 quid maximum. So a very, very small investment. In a backpack, you can fit all of that stuff, and then you'd have your SAQ bag as well with your kettlebells in a boot. That would be a fantastic investment. You could buy all that for around probably £150. How do I build strength, endurance, and mobility without machines? Well, look, you don't need machines to work on mobility anyway, so you can do a ton of stretching outdoors. You incorporate a lot of dynamic mobility work within the warm-up, so you're probably going to do more of that because you're outdoors. When you're in a gym, you typically use things like treadmills and cross trainers to do all your pulse raising. When you're outdoors, you actually incorporate even more dynamic work, indirectly used as a pulse raiser. So mobility and that type of work you can do perfectly okay outdoors. Better, in fact, especially when you've got a beautiful backdrop, you probably relax more, sink into those stretches. When it comes to strength and endurance, well, strength is relative. So if somebody wants to become a world-class powerlifting champion, in theory, you could do that outdoors if you took racks and barbells and things outdoors. But if you're talking about just going to your local park and training your average Joe, you're never going to get somebody to powerlifting level elite strength. But that's probably 0.01% of the clients that are out there anyway, so you don't need to worry about that. But giving somebody kettlebells and making them more efficient at pressing overhead, picking things from the ground like deadlifts and hip hinges and swings and goblet squats and carries and things like that, you're definitely going to get a client stronger and more efficient at just moving load. Building strength and then building endurance, if you're talking about muscular endurance, overcoming repeated repetitions, you can do that really well with the kettlebells. Kettlebells and calisthenics, wonderful tools for building strength and endurance. And then when it comes to cardiovascular fitness, so you think about more endurance from a cardio point of view, you've got the great outdoors. I mean, rucking, running, like just me coming up here, I'm at the top of Sisbury Ring here. It's a bit of a walk. I had to go up quite a steep set of steps and, up a steep path with a backpack on. Actually, I've been up this before with a weighted backpack. I had 35 kilos and it took me to my maximal heart rate. That's not running, that's walking uphill with load in my backpack. So that's something you can do for your clients, which is fantastic. I mean, what a wonderful way to train somebody to improve their heart and lungs. So you've got that too. I just used to love using the SAQ bag and doing drills like putting cones out and doing agility drills, different types of running drills, sprinting. So think about different distances, different speeds. You'd never run out of ideas. Whereas on a treadmill, yeah, you can mix things up with intervals, different types of intervals and things. But there's just something about doing it outdoors. It is more fun. It's way more fun. How should I structure a session outdoors? So when you're structuring training sessions outdoors, I wouldn't do it too dissimilar to how you would structure a session in a gym. You're going to have a warm-up, a main, and a cool-down. Now, with your warm-up, you're going to have some sort of pulse-raising activities. So, that can be anything from jogging on the spot, jogging around, brisk walking, side steps, walking lunges, reverse lunges, lateral lunges, walking along, doing squats every now and then. So just think about the sort of exercises. If you ever go and watch football, the sort of stuff they do in the warm-up, it's brilliant, fantastic. You could replicate any type of sport-specific warm-up, and it's probably going to be pretty good for most PT sessions. And when it comes to your main, you've got a few options there. You could deliver it circuit style. So I used to sometimes do a circuit where I'd have a circle of stations just in a very small area, and they would move from one station to the next. Like the original Morgan and Anderson, by 1953, they invented the circuit training class. And you would just move around into 9 to 12 stations, staying at a station for a given time frame before moving on. So you could do it like that. If you're into your CrossFit style training, you could do an AMRAP. So you just give them a list of exercises, take a whiteboard with you to the park, write down a list of exercises that give them a total body workout, put a prescribed number of reps alongside each one, and just set a timer for 12 minutes and say, right, we're going to work for as many rounds that as we can in 12 minutes. There's tons of different methods out there. It doesn't have to be too dissimilar to working in a gym. You're just changing the environment. That's all you're doing. How do I progress and regress exercises? This is definitely a question for one of my students, because the fact they're thinking about progressions and regressions is really important. So when we train, now don't get me wrong, we can go outdoors and we can just do pretty much anything, and you're going to feel a mental health benefit from doing it. And you're also it's going to be good for your health. It doesn't have to be terribly structured, and it's still going to be good for you. But PT clients want a bit more than that. Otherwise, what's the point of going to see a PT? We want guaranteed results. Over time, we want to make sure that we are getting better. So this is where we have to make sure there is progressive overload. So clients are progressively getting better. So you need to record stuff. So I would still, when I used to train clients outdoors, I would still take a program with a training log with me. Now, sometimes I would take a laptop and I would do it using something like Google Sheets, and I'd connect to my phone. But there are some issues with that, obviously, like connection issues and what have you. I think eventually, actually, I ended up binning that off and just going back to old school paper programs on a clipboard, and then I would log the result in there. So whatever your clients are doing, you want to be logging the number of reps, the weight that they're lifting, and then just have a little bit of space to write some notes. So whether that's to do with their form or whether that's recording their RPE, if they're saying to you, that was really easy today, that was like a 5 out of 10, write that down. So next time, let's creep it up a bit. Let's take the reps up. Let's take the load up. Let's make sure there's some sort of progression. So, the short answer to the question is, how do we make sure there's progressions and regressions is logging. You have to log data. You have to log everything they're doing. Follow a structured program and log what they do. Okay, here's a good one. What's some creative ways to use the environment as part of the workout? I've done all sorts over the years. Now, disclaimer, you do have to make sure you do a thorough risk assessment when you do this. So whatever you're going to utilize, just be a bit sensible. Think about it and think, right, what could go wrong here? Can I hurt my client? Can I hurt myself? Can I hurt anybody around me? If so, what control measures can I put in place to stop that? And if it's actually the risk is too high, so the likelihood of something going wrong and the severity is quite high, then just don't do it. It would be my answer to that. But look, you got benches. Benches are great for doing things like dips on, tricep dips, bench dips, brilliant. You can do step ups on a bench. The polite John says you are getting your dirty shoes all over a bench that somebody would like to sit on. So think about that. You're better off probably finding a little wall, or parks have those barriers around the outside. So you could just use that for doing some toe taps or something like that. I've wrapped suspension trainers around branches of trees, and I've had my clients doing rows and chest presses and things like that. That's something that I will assess the risk on and have decided that the likelihood of anything going wrong is minimal. But you do need to make sure that is a robust tree and that branch is robust. You give it a good pull. It's not a dead tree and that branch is about to come off, because that could have quite devastating consequences. But for me, to be honest, mainly it's the space that I utilize the most. If you're moving with your client, so you're not necessarily staying in one place, if you're just taking them off somewhere and bringing them back, you've just got all this wonderful space. So just accessing space for me was always the biggest benefit of taking clients outdoors. It's the freedom rather than being trapped, confined in a small space. Might have something to do with my ADHD, that. What mistakes do PTs make when using minimal equipment? I covered this earlier, but I would say it's actually never logging anything. It's just having a program and just doing it for the fun of it, which I know there are going to be some people that listen to me bleating on and say, God, he's taking the fun out of it. But I find the data fun. I find being able to show a client, this is what you did when you first came. This is what you're doing now. Look how much better you are. I find that, that gives me a buzz, but it gives them a buzz. And you're missing out on that. If you don't log any kind of data, you're missing out on that. And actually, that's evidence-based. I'm not just making this up. Evidence shows that self-esteem improves through exercise when the person has evidence that they are fitter. You've got to make sure that evidence is real. It's not just a feeling. You've got the data that shows it. So I have seen PTs, not just in gyms, but outdoors a lot, doing the sort of follow the leader type training. Right, follow me then. Let's start with some squats. Going to do some squats. Follow me. Let's go into some lunges. Right, now let's do some push-ups. Right, grab that kettlebell. Let's do some swings. And it's babysitting PT. It's just going, come and do what I do, and I'm sure you'll feel great afterwards. It's fine. It has some value to it, but it's not going to justify charging a premium for that type of service. Right, here we go. Last question. How do I keep sessions feeling fresh and professional? So I interpret that question as fresh, meaning not boring, not getting stagnant, and professional, meaning that there is some structure and strategy to what you're doing. I mean, I often think back to something that Charles Poliquin said many years ago, where he used to say that the body adapts pretty well to something after about 6 times of doing it. What that means is, let's say you go for a run and it's the same set run that you do. You just try and run it hard to get a good time. After you've done it about 6 times, your progress is going to start to plateau. Something needs to change. You need to do that run with a backpack. You need to go a different route. You need to mix it up, try some fartlek training, try some intervals. And it's the same with getting in the weights room. Your program of barbell back squats, barbell bench press, kettlebell swings, 6 reps times 4 sets of each. And you're getting good gains each week, and then for whatever reason, you plateau. To keep things fresh, I would actually change things up probably every 4th session. So you're not doing the same thing all the time. Now, I know some people, they like the idea of doing something different every single time. Now, yes, that can be very fun and very stimulating, but you need an element of repetition, A, to see whether you're improving at something, B, to actually get competent at it, and to ensure there's quite a systemized strategy for progressive overload. So that's where the professionalism comes in. You've got to have that progressive overload. So give somebody a chance to do the same thing again, but see if it's a little bit easier, or see if they can raise the bar a little bit more. So to keep things fresh, change it up maybe every 4 to 5 sessions. To keep it professional, make sure there's structure, log data, progressive overload. And also, have some time where you can throw finishes in. So if you want that spontaneity of just throwing something out there, keep a bit of time at the end to do a finisher, a 5 to 10 minute exercise where you just finish that client off, something fun. Get the pads and gloves out, do some boxing, do some quick sort of short, sharp sprint intervals, do some sort of barter exercise, put everything back in the boot of the car and then take them for a run, maybe a time trial or something. But just have a list of things in your toolkit, maybe just print off a list on your computer, keep it in your bag and just pick one and just go, right, that's what we're doing. Oh, I'll tell you what would be a lovely idea actually. Make a pack of cards with different finishes on them, shuffle them and tell your client to pick one. That'd be good. That'd make it nice and fresh, wouldn't it? So there we go. That is today's episode done. Now, don't forget, this is a 3-part series. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you tune in next week, because next week we're going to be looking at how to actually set up and run a successful outdoor fitness business. So that's a good one to tune into. Now, as always, if you have enjoyed today, do please make sure you subscribe to the show as well. So if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, do subscribe so you'll always get alerted when a new episode comes out. You can also go on our website and subscribe there so you'll get an email alert with a link directly to it. so you never miss out on an episode. And please share it with other people who think be interested by this content. Really, really helpful for me. Thank you. And yeah, have a lovely day. And make sure you get outdoors. Enjoy some vitamin D.